Hey there, in this video tutorial I'll be showing you how to set up a rendering scene in 3D Studio Max with multiple camera angles and lighting angles with the animation tool. Basically what we can get from here is we can click and set up all the rendering scenes once, hit render just once, and then from there we can get all the different rendered scenes without having to individually do it one by one. This will make a lot much more sense as I demonstrate throughout the video, and let's begin. So the first thing that we're going to do here is place a camera into the scene. So I'm going to go to my create panel, I'm going to select the camera and select object type as target. I'm now going to go into my plan view up here, and I'll just make him just change the viewport. Yep. Cool. So I'm going to go in here now, and I'm just going to place my camera in the first position of the scene that I want. So I'm just going to place him about there. Currently the lens is set at about 20 millimeters, which is nice and good for a wide screen shot and a wide angle shot. And since this is quite rather of a wide building, I think it's pretty appropriate to do it, and it just looks good. So the first thing I'm going to do is now put on the auto key animation tool. So what that will allow us to do is then to begin animating camera by having it move around the scene at different optimal positions where we want to take the photo from. So this is going to be the first position in the scene of the camera. Now let's start having it moving around the scene. So what we're going to do now is press the auto key button, and now we're going to begin to move him around the scene. So what we can do is move him now just to the next spot, which will say over here, and automatically you see these two red boxes pop up. What the red box means is that it indicates that within this keyframe that there's a sense of animation that's going on. So now this is where the second scene photography position will be. So now let's move it to the next spot in the scene, and I'll have the camera over here shooting from the north. Nice. And now for the last scene, I'll have a camera shooting from this side going this way. So I'll just click right over here with the auto key again, and I'll just move the camera over to this side. So now that I've placed the camera in 4 different positions and I'm quite happy with it, I can now turn the auto key off. So now that I turn auto key off and I flick through this, the auto key, a keyframe, I can begin to see that the camera is now positioned in different places in the scene. So yeah, so now we've set the camera up. We can now see where the position of the camera is in plan view, but now let's go into the actual view of the camera itself. So basically seeing what the camera is seeing and fix it up a little bit more. So what we can do now is basically go into the perspective view. I'm going to right click on perspective, go to cameras, camera 01, because that's the camera we're working with. And now you can see that now we're seeing the scene from the actual camera itself. So we're seeing what the camera is seeing. We can begin to move and adjust the parameters of the camera with these guys over here. With the orbit camera, that allows us to orbit the scene a bit. With the truck camera, that allows us to pan. And the dolly camera that allows us to zoom. So if we want to make any adjustments, we have to turn the auto key back on, so then that way whatever we do gets saved and it becomes part of the animated frames. So I'm going to turn auto key on, but first I'm going to go back to my very first scene, which is this guy. So I'm going to turn auto key on, and I'm just going to fix the position up just a little bit more. So we'll have the entire building in the scene. Yep, so I'm happy with that. Now that I'm happy with that, I'll go to the next scene by clicking right over here, and I'll just move him a little bit more, and I'll have him about there. Yep, the next scene, So now you can see that even though we placed the camera in the position that we wanted in plan, sometimes it might not come up exactly as we were expecting. So hence we are now in the camera view, so we can just fix them up. So maybe for this particular scene, I will have it shooting from more of a bird's eye view angle. Up top from here. Yep, and now I'll go to the next, the last and final, which is about over here. And maybe I'll zoom him in a little bit more. Perfect. So now that I'm happy with the setting up of these 4 camera scenes and angles, I can now turn auto key off. So now if I flick through the keyframe, you can see the different angles in which we will be photographing from. Now, in terms of the lighting, we can apply the same logic to the camera as to the lighting by having the light and the sunlight actually moving around the scene and being positioned in spots that's optimal and that spots that corresponds to the camera in such a way that the lighting angles work nicely together. So what I mean by that is, for example, in the first scene, the camera is placed over here. So maybe what I'll do is have the move the sunlight into a spot that's gonna make the rendering look a little bit better with good lighting. So I'll move my daylight over here and I'll move the source of the sun to about over here. So that way the sun is nice and illuminating the building that we'll be photographing. So now that I'm happy with the first positioning of the sun, I'm going to turn the auto key on. So this signifies that now auto key recognizes that the sun is in the very first position. So now for the next, to go to the next keyframe, I'm going to click right over here. You could see that the camera is moved over here, and I'll move the sun to over here as well. So maybe this spot over here. Great. Now for the next scene, I'll have the sun about over here. And now for the next one, I'll move the sun so it's about over here. So now you can see when we flick through the keyframes, we can see that the sun and the camera are moving together in such a way that it corresponds to one another, and that, you know, the lighting is set up in such a way that will, you know, create a nice rendering scene with the camera. So now that I'm happy with the positioning of the camera and the sun in all 4 spots, I can now render all 4 scenes at once rather than individually rendering every single scene one at a time. So what I'm going to do is go into the rendering tool up here and then go to render setup. I'm then going to select my frames that I want, which is, as we said here, so it's going to be frame 0, 1, 2, 3, or we can also just do 0 to 3 for that matter. I'm going to go down over here, and from a render output, I'm going to save the files and I'm going to name it a file. So I will name it multiple rendering views. Now I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And now when I hit render, it should all render out 3 of the angles that we set up all at once. So now I've hit the render button, and now it should render it all out. So this actual black image before was from another scene, so that had nothing to do with it. Actually, but we want to be in here. So we'll have it set up in the camera view. So let's do that one again. Just go to render setup. Now have it starting off at the very first frame, which is frame number 0, and as we see here, it's frame 0 to 3. And then I'm going to click render, and now it should all come out. So at the moment, the file is just being rendered out. So yeah, we'll just wait for a little bit more, and we'll begin to see that all 3 or 4 views all come out at once. So this is the first scene. So it's basically rendered. Now it's going to the next scene. Yep. The good thing about this as well is that if your rendering setup is at a very high quality, you could just hit the render once and you can go to sleep and you could just wait, or you can go do something you want. You can come back many hours later and all of the scenes will be rendered out for you, rather than having to stay in front of the computer and just wait to render out every scene one at a time. So that's one of the good benefits about this little trick over here. And this is, I believe, the 4th and the final scene. Nope, this one is. Right, so now all 4 has been rendered out, and if I go to my desktop where I saved the file destination, it should all be right here. So multiple render views, 00, 01, 02, and 03, and that's it. So thanks for watching this video tutorial, and I hope that was some help, and we'll see you soon.